The Committee on Energy is called to order. For the purpose of taking attendance, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Wendzel.
Here.
Representatives Prestin.
Here.
Martin.
Yeah, here.
Bagol.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Schmaltz.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Fairbairn.
Here.
Frisbee.
Here.
Linting.
Here.
Tate.
Here.
Brixey.
Here.
Liberati.
Here.
Andrews.
Here.
Kofia. Hersberg. Myers Phillips.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have 15 members present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Majority Vice Chair Preston moves to adopt the minutes from our March 4th meeting. Seeing no objections, the minutes are approved. All right, I'd like to thank everybody for being here bright and early on this beautiful Tuesday we're having here in Michigan, much better than the snow we were having yesterday. We're going to get started this morning by voting out the nuclear package HB 4124 through 4129 that we heard testimony on a few weeks back at our last meeting. I've got two cards to read in here real quick. Supports the bill, Mike Johnston, Michigan Manufacturers Association, and is neutral on the bill, Justin Carpenter, Michigan EIBC. All right, so up first, I'm offering an H1 substitute to 4124, which just
Madam Chair.
beefs up the, we'll get to you, beefs up the R&D tax credit to include the whole nuclear industry, from SMRs to studying new sources of fuel that will be available in the next few years, to making investments at existing plants and to get more power out of them. Michigan's going to lead in every aspect of next generation nuclear technology. That's what we're trying to do here. And I look forward to negotiating these final numbers. I know this isn't the final bill. I'm not that optimistic with the Senate and the governor's team. And I appreciate everybody's support. So I make a motion to adopt the H1 substitute. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
On the motion to adopt the H1 substitute, Chair Wendzel.
Yes.
Representatives Preston.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Bagol.
Yes.
DeBoer.
Yes.
Schmaltz.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Fairbairn.
Yes.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Linting.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Brixey.
Yes.
Liberati.
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Kofia. Hersberg. Myers Phillips.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 15 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The H1 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The substitute is adopted. I need a motion to report HB 4124 with recommendation as substituted. Thank you, Representative Martin. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the motion to report, Chair Wendzel.
Yes.
Representatives Preston.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Bagol.
Yes.
DeBoer.
Yes.
Schmaltz.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Fairbairn.
Yes.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Linting.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Brixey.
No.
Liberati.
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Kofia. Hersberg. Myers Phillips.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 13 yeas, 2 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Point of information, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Brixey.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. There is someone on Zoom who is wanting to give public comment on this bill package, the superintendent of Bridgman Schools, and I would respectfully request that he be allowed to submit his 2 minutes of public comment.
The chair will go at ease. Energy will come back. I believe he has submitted written testimony, Representative Brixey, and because we are under a time crunch with many people here to testify, we took testimony last week on those, so we'll be moving on. Next up, we have House Bill 4125 to refer. Does somebody have a motion to refer that bill? Representative Andrews makes a motion to refer 4125. Do we have a substitute? To the Committee on Rules. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
On the motion to refer House Bill 4125, Chair Wendzel.
Yes.
Representatives Preston.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Bagol.
Yes.
DeBoer.
Yes.
Schmaltz.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Fairbairn.
Yes.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Linting.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Brixey.
Yes.
Liberati.
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Kofia. Hersberg. Myers Phillips.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 15 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. House Bill 4125 is referred to the Committee on Rules.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Up next, we have House Bill 4126 is reported, 4125 is reported with, to the Rules Committee. Next up, we have 4126, 4125. Moving along, I need a motion to report House 4126. Representative Bagol recommends 4126. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
On the motion to report House Bill 4126, Chair Wendzel,
Yes.
Representatives Prestin,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Bagol,
Yes.
DeBoer,
Yes.
Schmaltz,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Fairbairn,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Linting,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Brixey,
Yes.
Liberati,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Kofia, Hersberg, Myers Phillips.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 15 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. House Bill 4126 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. House Bill 4126 is reported with recommendation. Next, I have Representative Thompson moves to report 4127 with recommendation that it passes. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
On the motion to report, Chair Wendzel,
Yes.
Representatives Preston,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Bagol,
Yes.
DeBoer,
Yes.
Schmaltz,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Fairbairn,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Linting,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Brixey,
Yes.
Liberati,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Kofia, Hersberg, Myers Phillips.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 15 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. House Bill 4127 is reported with recommendation. Next up, I do have a substitute H2 for House Bill 4128. Like 4124, this includes the entire industry for the production tax credit and kicks the date out to 2040 to allow more than a single company to take advantage of it. I move my substitute. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the motion to adopt the H2 substitute, Chair Wendzel.
Yes.
Representatives Preston.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Bagol.
Yes.
DeBoer.
Yes.
Schmaltz.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Fairbairn.
Yes.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Linting.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Brixey.
Yes.
Liberati.
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Kofia. Hersberg. Myers Phillips.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 15 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The H2 is adopted.
All right. House Bill 4128 is reported. Right now. Recommendation as substitute H2. You want me to do this now? All right, and we have a amendment by Representative Brixey. Would you like to talk to your amendment?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Madam Chair. Last week, Energy Committee members were asked that these bills include protections for local communities that prevent SMRs from lowering their property tax values using unfair methods and depleting our communities of needed revenues. We heard from over a dozen Michiganders regarding these concerns, including the superintendent of Bridgman schools. So we heard about the schools who continue to face severe revenue challenges after a property tax appeal that would have reduced their school district's revenue by 74%. Although a settlement agreement was able to be reached, Bridgman Public Schools is still experiencing a revenue loss of 12% with a $1.2 million annual deficit. They urged us to include protections that ensure SMRs only receive tax credits if they're classified as real property and are valued using generally accepted appraisal principles, including consideration of the property's highest and best use. I'm disappointed that we weren't able to allow the superintendent to give public comment on this really important legislation. And because of these important and I hope unintended consequences of the proposed bills, I offer the following amendment to ensure that as we give these SMRs a helping hand with governmental tax credits, we are ensuring that they continue to be partners in our local communities and pay the locals their fair share by requiring that they be classified as real property and valued using generally accepted appraisal principles, including the highest and best use of the property. Therefore, I move the amendment.
Rep. Brixey moves her amendment. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the
speak
motion
to-
to amend, Chair Wendzel.
Oh, I had my hand up, Madam
No.
Chair. May I speak in support of the amendment, Madam
You may
Chair?
not. Please take the roll.
On the motion to amend, Chair Wendzel.
No.
Representatives Prestin,
No.
Martin,
No.
Bagol,
No.
DeBoer,
No.
Schmaltz,
No.
Thompson,
No.
Fairbairn,
No.
Frisbee,
No.
Linting,
No.
Tate,
Yes.
Brixey,
Yes.
Liberati,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Kofia, Kersberg, Myers Phillips.
Standing with the Bridgman community and our school districts for this protection, I also support this amendment.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 10 nays, 0 pass. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And last but not least, I need a motion to refer House Bill 4129 to the Committee on Rules. 28? 28. Not the rules? House Bill 4128 is reported with recommendation as substitute H2.
So you need a motion.
All right. Rep. Goal has a motion to report 4128. Please call the roll. There we go. 4128, everyone.
On the motion to report House Bill 4128, Chair Wendzel,
Yes.
Representatives Preston,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Bagol,
Yes.
DeBoer,
Yes.
Schmaltz,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Fairbairn,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Linting,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Brixey,
No.
Liberati,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Kofia, Kersberg, Myers Phillips.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 12 yeas. You have 12 yeas, 2 nays, 0 pass. House Bill 4128 is reported with recommendation as substitute H2.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now, last but not least, we need a motion to refer 4129 with recommendation to the Rules Committee. Representative Thompson makes the motion. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
On the motion to refer, Chair Wendzel.
Yes.
Representatives Preston.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Bagol.
Yes.
DeBoer.
Yes.
Schmaltz.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Fairbairn.
Yes.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Linting.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Rixey.
No. Yes. Sorry.
Liberati.
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Kofia. Kersberg. Myers Phillips.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 15 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. House Bill 4129 is referred to the Committee on Rules.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. House Bill 4129 is referred to the Committee on Rules. All right, we're done with that now. Thanks, everybody. We've got a lot of testimony up on this next bill package. First up, Representatives Bohnak and Prestin. You can make your way up there. We have lots of people here to testify today, so if we could keep testimony somewhat short. I'm not going to put a timer on yet, but if we could be aware that we like everybody that did come all the way from the UP. We have a lot of people here, so I thank you all for being here. Make sure that they have time to be able to speak on this bill package. All right, gentlemen, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair and fellow committee members. Today, I'm speaking on behalf of my bill, House Bill 4007. This bill would ensure that the 13 reciprocating internal combustion engines in the Upper Peninsula, the so-called natural gas-powered RICE generators, stay online, providing power to the electric grid through the end of their life cycle in 2049. Our RICE generators were constructed and put online through a collaborative effort between the state of Michigan, Cleveland Cliffs, Wisconsin Electric Energy Group, and UP stakeholders after the Presque Isle and Shiras coal-fired power plants in Marquette were shuttered in the late 2010s. These generators are a vital component of the UP's electric grid because of their reliability and affordability. With the renewable energy laws passed in the previous legislative session taking effect, our RICE generators would be forced offline 10 years before the end of their life cycle. This would result in building a brand new renewable energy infrastructure, the cost of which would be borne by UP families, businesses, and industries. In addition, this new infrastructure would be composed of weather-dependent wind turbines and solar panels. These energy sources do not supply dispatchable energy on demand, which is essential to the operation of the Tilden Mine, the Eagle Mine, our regional medical center, as well as other businesses, large and small, across the Upper Peninsula. These RICE generators were constructed to lower carbon dioxide emissions, and they have done so by over 75%. Any further reduction of CO2 must take into account the reliability of our grid, as well as the cost to industry, business, and the residents of the Upper Peninsula. Thank you for your time, and I'm willing to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. The 13 RICE units, while they're entirely located in Representative Bohnak's district, provide a stable base load of energy across the Upper Peninsula and have worked to stabilize energy within our region. During the decommissioning timeframe of Marquette Board and Light and Power and the Shirey's coal power plant, and most importantly, Presque Isle, MISO, the regional transmission organization, responsible for grid reliability in most of Michigan, became particularly concerned about the availability, reliability of electricity in the Upper Peninsula. Losing Presque Isle, our largest power plant, meant the UP was going to be burdened with tens of millions of dollars in annual system support resource payments, and potential for blackouts, millions in ATC transmission upgrades, because our grid would effectively be burdened on the generation and transmission coming exclusively from Wisconsin. In order to avoid these SSR payments, we needed to build new generation. We have experts who, following me, will testify about this further. It was decided that these RICE units would be the best solution because they're relatively mobile, can be deployed close to where the energy demand is needed. In addition, their generation output is scalable based on system demand. These units went online in 2019, and I can tell you from my time on the Alger Delta Electrical Cooperative Board of Directors, utilities plan in decades, not years. Our concern is that without implementing the exemptions in the clean energy and renewable energy standards, the cost of building any further generation capacity that the Upper Peninsula simply does not need, will only drive our energy rates higher. Our rates already represent some of the highest in the country. Higher rates will force our largest employers, who depend on affordable, dispatchable, and reliable electricity, to leave the UP entirely. We'll lose thousands of good-paying jobs and thousands of residents potentially over the Wisconsin border. The MPSC's UP Energy Report, along with the testimony you will hear today, demonstrates that there is a need to find a solution to keep these RICE units operational through their cited life of 2049. We believe that our proposal is the most practical, affordable, and environmentally friendly path to achieve that goal. My bill, House Bill 4283, adds a section that would ensure that the RICE units can be used to comply with the renewable energy standard under the law. Under the bill, once these RICE units have reached the end of their life cycle, they will still have to be replaced with other forms of clean or renewable energy, as defined under the current law. The bill would not alter climate goals, the climate goals that the legislature adopted in 2023. My language is complementary and reinforcing to the language in Representative Bohnak's bill. Without a solution to the requirements within both standards, the burden on the UP will be completely unsustainable and subsequently catastrophic. Some of you that have served with me on Energy Committee in the last term will remember that I offered an amendment to this effect when Senate Bill 271 was passed 2 years ago. While we were unfortunate to get that language in the bill at that time, it is my belief that the UP Energy Report required by law, as implemented, demonstrates our unique situation and the need to find a path forward for specifically the Upper Peninsula. In the 10 years before 2023, law went into effect, the UP was already a leader in clean energy by decommissioning coal power plants well ahead of the rest of the state of Michigan. We lowered our CO2 emissions by over 70%, far ahead of the rest of Michigan, because we built these RICE units. The proposal of those who would want us to depend on building out renewable generation and transmission capacity fail to recognize the history of these units. The Upper Peninsula has already tried that path, and it failed miserably. There's nothing worse for the environment or the economy than energy poverty. Our current trajectory puts us on a path where people who still have jobs won't be able to afford their energy bills, and even worse, many people won't have a job because their employers simply can't afford the electric anymore. We desperately need your help to find a solution. Thank you all, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, representatives, for your testimony today and for being here. I know it was a long drive. You're still driving, right? All the way down here, not flying. Yes. So just wanted to clarify this a little bit. The UP shut down a coal plant recently and replaced that generation with natural gas. But because of the energy laws that were passed in 23 last term, you have to shutter these units, which you still have to pay off for decades while paying to build more generation. Is that correct?
Essentially, yes. The new standards that went into effect really put coal on the irons, and Shirey's as well as Presque Isle got shut down. And as soon as that happened, it initiated just a catastrophe up in the Upper Peninsula with these system support resource payments that we were looking over. And it's without those coal plants, we were basically tethered to Wisconsin. So without a base load supply within the Upper Peninsula to keep our grid stable and strong and dispatchable, we were looking at just costs that once again we're looking at once again with the renewable package. So hope that puts in context what you're looking at.
And just a ballpark, how many billions of dollars would you say this will cost ratepayers? Ish.
The people coming behind me are going to be able to speak a little bit further, but the projected cost recoveries, monthly cost recoveries from your single homeowner will range right around $90. That'll be just the monthly surcharge for the renewable aspect. I would say plateauing in 2040 for the mine at 15 million. So we're looking at unsustainable costs, and the problem is that we have a utility we're in Region 2. We're in MISO Region 2. Lower Michigan's in MISO Region 7. We're tethered to Wisconsin in so many ways. So what this does is it puts Wisconsin on the burden of complying with Michigan's renewable energy plan, and they cannot pass those cost recovery mechanisms to their Wisconsin ratepayers. They can only pass them on to the Upper Peninsula ratepayers. So they're going to build out a tremendous amount of renewable infrastructure, and the burden of that cost is going to fall on the Upper Peninsula.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, members? Representative Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned thousands of jobs. Now, I'm going to guess it's not just maintaining the generators. It's got to be the baseload energy to other companies that may not even come to the UP, and then the homeowners that can't afford their bills and are going to go someplace else. Do I got that correct? Is that where the thousands come from?
No, the thousands comes directly from there's one singular employer in the Tilden mine, that represents 1,000 direct jobs, then probably 2,000 to 3,000 more indirect jobs down the line, and this really puts them on a path of unsustainability as far as their operations is concerned, and many other employers, down in my neck of the woods in Billerud, the paper mill, the large power costs associated with this, if I'm remembering right, are anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 monthly, depending on where on the amortization schedule you are on the cost recovery. And those cost recovery mechanisms are monthly. And I will cite that the MPSC's report, as required by law, did require them to do a deep dive into this, and they did find that there is a problem here that requires fixing. We are simply asking to allow this generation that was just brought online in 2019, and I can't stress that enough. All 13 of these RICE units were brought online in 2019 to just be able to move out and generate to their cited time of 2049.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Myers-Phillips.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question just follows up on that to the bill sponsors, and I'm sensitive to high energy costs and unreliable grid. You know, we have a lot of the same issues all across the state, especially in Southeast Michigan. But the question is in balancing, you know, those very real concerns and also the very real need to transition to renewable energy. I want to clarify, is your legislation, your bills, are you proposing a complete exemption or are you proposing an extension? And another question would be if you could elaborate more. You mentioned the report that the commission put together, and they laid out several options, many of which are complex, and we have to recognize that. But I wanted you to speak to whether you've been in contact with the authors of that report and some of the other possible complicated solutions that were mentioned that could potentially help the UP meet its clean energy goals. So I guess it's a bit of a complicated question, but in short, extension versus exemption, and then to speak to some of the other recommendations that were listed for further exploration in the report.
No, thank you for that question. In the end, I think we're looking for an accommodation. It could be in the form of an extension. In the end, we were well ahead of the rest of the state when it came to complying, you know, with the renewable energy standard and with the natural gas and clean power requirements. So we shut down both of our coal plants and we got ahead of things. And all of the ratepayers right now, they're already leveraged with the cost recovery mechanisms that are in place for those RICE generators. So I believe in 2035, when the renewable standard hits 60%, those RICE generators are effectively going to be boat anchors. They're not going to be able to be used. And instead, we're going to have to reach out and purchase renewable energy credits to make up for that. And the utility is going to have to start an aggressive build out on renewable, which is also going to hit the ratepayers. So the ratepayers are going to be hit with not only a stranded asset cost. So these RICE generators will be sitting there, and we'll have to continue to pay on them. This is a $300 million build. So they're going to have to continue to pay on them, but they'll also have to pay a monthly renewable energy surcharge. And when you're talking about an area of Michigan in the Upper Peninsula that already suffers from some of the highest rates as it is, we're just simply trying to hold on to the jobs that we have, the economy that we have, and the rates that we have, because they're already unaffordable in a lot of ways, and this just makes them exponentially worse. I hope that came close.
It did. Did you have any particular opinion on some of the alternatives that were mentioned in the report for further exploration to help the UP in its complicated quest to meet the renewable energy goals?
Yeah, and there's a lot of sensitivities in there trying to go down all the available paths. I truly believe coming out of the industry, albeit on a distributive cooperatives aspect, but I've learned a lot in the 9 years that I was at Alger Delta regarding distributive energy as well as generation and transmission. And I think what we need in the UP is time. The SMR bills that we just passed is just the thing that the UP could embrace to bring base load and to bring an adequate replacement to the RICE generators down the road. So in the end, I think what the Upper Peninsula desperately needs is just time. Like I said earlier, utilities operate in decades, not years. And the plan as laid out, it runs in years, not decades. And we're just not able to respond and comply quickly enough without it really coming at the expense of just catastrophic expenses to the Upper Peninsula.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Brixey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, can you talk to me a little bit about what you think the impact of the tariffs from Canada will be on these RICE plants and ultimately the ratepayers?
There's no tariff aspect to the RICE plants. The RICE plants are sited within the UP. There's 13 of them.
The source of the natural gas?
The source of the natural gas itself.
Yes. Which?
So are you referring to the 10%?
I mean, it could go up. We don't know what the tariffs are yet. But
Yeah, so-
we see that there is a tariff war going on, and of course, unfortunately, we are caught directly in the crosshairs with our heavy reliance on our good neighbors in Canada and in Mexico because of both our manufacturing, our energy reliance, and our agricultural diversity. So, you know, you're proposing that this is ultimately going to be good for the ratepayers and the industries that rely on the energy in the UP, but what about the impact of the cost of the natural gas itself?
Well, I'm not really sure on the origination of the natural gas. I do know Line 5 does not run natural gas. They run mostly heavy crude over to Sarnia, and that's where Sarnia does most of its refining. So to the extent that natural gas prices are affected on the tariffs, I don't know, especially during this time of the year when energy consumption primarily throughout the MISO region is low because we're in between seasons here. We typically see spikes in the heat of summer and the cold of winter. But again, our bill packages are not about this. It's really about the RICE generators themselves and their ability to go forward, because I see everything on the tariff side being temporary in nature.
Is there anybody that you have testifying coming after you from the plant that will be able to answer these questions?
Most likely.
Thanks. I'll ask him again.
Thank you, representatives, for your testimony. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we have Valerie Brader. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the members of the committee for the opportunity to talk to you today regarding electricity in the UP. My name is Valerie Brader, and I headed Michigan's energy policy under Governor Snyder's administration. Today, I am an attorney and a consultant in private practice that specializes in energy and sustainability issues, but I want to be clear that I am not representing any client today. Stated another way, no one's paying for my time, no one approved my testimony, and I'm really just hoping to convey some information about how and why we got here and why I feel we need a different solution for the UP than current law allows. Specifically, I am here to explain why the RICE units were the right generation solution for the UP and why the current law would force the UP to build generation it doesn't need. When I entered governmental service in 2011, the Presque Isle Power Plant, or PIP, as you've heard, was nearing the end of its life, but it wasn't clear that it had to retire. PIP was sized to supply about half the energy needed for the entire UP, and that was, not coincidentally, the amount of energy Cleveland Cliffs needed. And Cliffs operated at that time both the Empire and the Tilden mines, but we knew Empire's life was short. Specifically, Cliffs had been saying as far back as 2008 that Empire would close by 2017, and it did close in 2016. Now, Tilden has a longer lifespan, but it's not infinite, and I will come back to why that matters a little bit later in my story. Due in part to Cliffs choosing to buy its electricity from someone other than its utility, the utility said it was going to close PIP because it couldn't justify owning a plant of that size if Cliffs wasn't a customer for their power. However, the entire UP grid would go into emergency mode without PIP because it was that crucial for reliability. And in case we wondered, we had tested that theory more than once. There was a time when the coal pile froze so badly that not even the Upers could figure out how to deal with it, and another time when PIP was flooded and so couldn't produce. On both those occasions, Cliffs and other industrial customers shut down, and we were just barely able to keep the lights on with what generation we had in the UP and what we could transmit over long transmission lines from Wisconsin. And in case you're wondering, we don't have a connection to Canadian Electric Power in the UP, and the connection to the Lower Peninsula, which is across the straits, is pretty small. It's not really designed to import a lot of energy into the UP. So Wisconsin really is your only practical place to get electricity into the UP if the UP itself isn't making enough. Now, when you don't have enough generation slated to be online to support reliability, MISO takes over. MISO is the organization that operates the grid for most of Michigan, and under federal law, if they think a plant's operation is vital for reliability, they can order it to stay open. They can order it to run in violation of environmental laws. That is what they did for PIP. When that happened, MISO then cut a confidential deal with the utility to make sure that ratepayers were paying all the expenses to keep the plant open. And it immediately passed those charges on to everyone in the UP. The Michigan Public Service Commission had no power to stop it, even if the utility was already collecting money in their rates to run it. This spiked bills across the UP, and it wasn't clear what the long-term fix was going to be or how much it was going to cost. In fact, litigation over those costs, which stopped being imposed in 2016, is still going on at the federal government today. Meanwhile, the city of Marquette, which has its own municipal utility, had an old coal plant, and the city's reliability was so dependent on that plant that I was told at the time it wasn't eligible to join MISO. So they also needed a solution to replace their generation with better reliability, and they decided to use RICE units. So this is the UP energy dilemma that was dropped in my lap on the first 2 months of the job. So members of the committee, and especially those who are newly elected, I feel your pain. I and many others spent years trying to find a good answer. We were looking for a solution that was affordable, reliable, clean, and sustainable, what my boss called a no-regrets option. The solution we came to is the one in place today, a bunch of small natural gas units in multiple locations, the RICE engines. And I'll say more about why they've met those 4 criteria in a bit. But I want to tell you about our first 2 attempted solutions and why they definitely didn't work, because I think it's helpful to understand that as we look at what the UP needs now. So the first solution that we seriously looked at was keeping PIP going, because we needed to do that for short-term reliability regardless. But it just didn't work for more than a few years as a stopgap measure, even though the law would have allowed it. The plant was expensive because it was too big once Empire's load went away, and it was hard to operate at a lower generation amount. Even if the city of Marquette and some other UP utilities were to agree to buy its power, you just couldn't get there. It also wasn't a great solution for reliability, in part because it was most of our generation in a single location. And I talked about the flood and the coal pile. Like, you want something more than one, where it doesn't take more than one thing to go wrong, right? And it was an old coal plant, so it wasn't particularly clean and it wasn't all that sustainable. So we gave up on that pretty quickly. The second solution that we seriously looked at was building a big new natural gas plant to replace PIP. But we struggled, and we struggled to try to make it affordable because, again, we were trying to put a lot of generation in a single spot, and you had to get a good location for both the electric grid and the natural gas pipeline, like where there was enough space in the pipeline, there was enough availability for injecting the electricity. You had to build it really quickly because we needed something to replace PIP. So this Goldilocks plant, the right size, the right spot, operational at the right time, it just never materialized. And even though moving from gas to coal would reduce emissions, we just couldn't make a big natural gas combined cycle plant work. And that was despite having people with a great track record and spending months trying to figure it out. And additionally, we had real concerns that the plant's life would exceed Cliff's demand. So it wasn't sustainable. And let me explain more about that concern, because it's even more present today, and I think you need to appreciate why it matters. Today, with just the Tilden mine operating, no more Empire, Cliffs needs approximately 1.1 megawatt of hours of electricity a year. UMERC, which is the utility that serves Cliffs, has a total demand of about 2 million megawatt hours a year. And the entire UP has a demand of about 4 million megawatt hours a year. So in other words, Cliffs represents more than half of its own utilities load, and it is more than a quarter of the load of all the utilities in the UP put together. One industrial customer. So Cliffs files reports with the SEC regarding its predicted life for each mine it owns, because after all, there's only so much ore in the ground. I pulled down their last report about Tilden last week, which was filed in 2022. And in that report, the company says Tilden has a 25-year life remaining, which would put its closure date at 2047. I went beyond that reported figure to do a little math of my own, which I know is always dangerous to have a lawyer doing math on her own, but here goes. The same report indicated that if the company maximized their ore production, that would be about 40% more ore than they produce on average that they predicted. So I'm guessing that means if you max out your production, you'll close about 40% sooner, which would be 2037. So I recommend that anyone planning for energy needs in the UP, but especially at UMERC, needs to assume that sometime between 2037 and 2047, UMERC's need for power will drop by half, and the entire UP's need will drop by around a quarter, at a minimum. So I think you see where I'm going here. If you build enough renewable energy to meet 50% of your demand by 2030, as the current law requires, you may now have renewables equal to 100% of your generation need just by waiting for 7 years. Although I want to be clear, I am not saying that would work for reliability on its own. I'm not saying Cliffs will close early. I'm just saying it's a possibility. Then, under the law, you would still have to build another 10% of renewables and potentially another 40% of new generation of either like nuclear or carbon capture with natural gas, which are both one big plant kind of solutions. And I think you've already heard from me why one big plant really doesn't work for the UP and really doesn't work if your demand is going to shrink. So now, to return back to where we got here, how we got to the RICE units. So we decided to replace PIP, which was 431 megawatts in size, with a set of smaller engines that altogether totaled 170 megawatts, so a lot smaller. That happened to be more or less what you need to supply Cliffs. Cliffs signed up to support them until they were pretty much paid off and agreed to ramp down their own demand if reliability required it. So this was a really affordable solution because we had right-sized the generation. And they could ramp down or up by turning some of them off or on, which meant that when run-of-the-river hydro or solar or wind was cheaper, you can just stop and use that. And when they're not there, you can bring them back on pretty quickly. And then they also let us turn off those big charges from MISO about PIP because we didn't need it anymore for reliability. And that was a great solution for reliability because you have these engines in more than one place, so no more one flood gives you a big problem. And we didn't have a single natural gas pipeline break that could shut down supply either. So you had a really good solution for reliability in that sense. And it was also a really big win for the environment because we could build them so quickly we could shut PIP down sooner. And that meant both cleaner air and a big reduction in carbon emissions by more than 70%. So we were downsizing our demand also, so they could build less. That Cliffs agreeing that it could come off on doing demand response. So again, good for cost, good for the environment. And finally, we thought it was a sustainable, no-regret solution because those RICE engine life pretty much match the predicted life of the mine. And also because with the nature of the RICE units, if the demand leaves early, you can just run some things, not all of them at once. So you're not paying to run a plant that's too big to serve a much smaller load, which was one of the big problems with PIP. So I am here today to encourage you to recognize that the current law just doesn't work for the UP's unique energy profile that has a single customer with enormous load and which is going to go away when the ore runs out. When the Rice unit solution emerged, it was heartily endorsed in a bipartisan fashion, with John Keevala, the Democrat who represented the House district with Marquette, and Tom Casperson, the Republican for the UP Senate, both eager to embrace it. And the last time I spoke to each of them before they died, we talked about how happy we were that after the years of trying to find a good solution, we had finally found a no regrets answer. I hope that this can be another time when people of both parties can recognize that the UP's energy poses unique challenges and can create a solution. Right now, the law requires UMERC to build a great deal of new generation just before most of its load is going to go away. I expect the city of Marquette's load may also change when the area's largest employer closes. So requiring them to build a lot of new generation is also problematic, in my opinion. Worst of all, the law pushes the UP toward building a single big plant, which regardless of what you fuel it with, coal, natural gas, nuclear, natural gas carbon capture, whatever it is, it's going to be too big. And that's going to mean it's not going to be affordable, it's not going to be what we need for reliability, and it's going to be a waste of natural resources compared to a right-sized solution. So I encourage all of you to alter the law to avoid that outcome. Thank you for indulging me with a very long story. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Valerie, and thank you for being here. The 2016 energy law, I know you're part of that, was very well written, so I appreciate your work on that. And I really appreciate you being here with your expertise and really giving the committee a background. It was very informative. Any questions? Oh, you did such a good job, nobody even has any questions.
They're afraid I have the length of the answer. No, again, thank you all.
Great, thank you so much. All right, next up, we have from UMERC, Pat Schillinger, Scott Johnson, and Richard Stasiak, I believe is on Zoom, and Tom Carpenter from Marquette BLP. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, and I appreciate the time to allow us to tell our story. My name is Tom Carpenter. I am the Executive Director for the Marquette Board of Light and Power. We own and operate the Marquette Energy Center, which is one of the 3 recip engine plants in Upper Michigan. Before I really get going, I want to say 3 things: reliability, affordability, and sustainability. These are kind of major decision drivers for us, and as I go along, you're going to see that as a theme in all the decisions that were made over the years for the Marquette Board of Light and Power. And this goes back further than even my time there. Quick bit of history. We are a municipal electric utility owned by our customers in Marquette, Michigan, founded in 1889. Given the remote location of Marquette, at that time, they found it as necessary to make their own electric utility because we were not well connected with the greater population centers of Lower Michigan and Wisconsin, and that is still very true today. 136 years later, we now serve 17,000 customers in the city of Marquette and all are parts of 9 surrounding townships. We are the largest municipal in the state of Michigan by area, not by load or customers, but by area, so we have a large service territory that we deal with. We supply power to the city residents, township residents, a state university, local schools, a state prison, a major regional hospital, and many other businesses in the area. When we first opened, also long ago, we relied completely on hydroelectric generators. We still have 2 of those in operation today, and they supply 5 to 10% of our needs on any given years. They've been in operating almost continuously for over 100 years. From the 1920s to the 1960s, we relied on a combination of hydroelectric and also recip engines, of all things. Seems that everything comes full circle sometimes. As demand continued to grow, we built the Shira steam plant, which was discussed earlier, in the 1960s, and we added additional units to that in the 1970s and early 80s. That plant supplied over 90% of our energy needs for nearly 50 years before we closed it in 2018. During that same period of time, we installed a combustion turbine that was fired by fuel oil. Because the demand was growing so fast, we needed something to help us provide power during those peak moments, and then also reliability again, because we were not well connected with anybody. Earlier, Valerie mentioned the flood of the Presque Isle Power Plant. We ran over 2.6 million gallons of fuel oil through that combustion turbine during that flood. So a key reliability piece that kept the lights on in the UP for most of that summer. And still today, that is in service. It was installed in the late 70s, and it's a very valuable resource for us because it meets our capacity requirements, and we don't have to go purchase that from other utilities, so it keeps us more reliable and more affordable. In early 2013, we found that the Shires plant was becoming a little less reliable because it was getting older and more expensive to run. So we started to study what our next steps should be to supply the needs for our community. We looked at everything from wind, solar, hydro, coal, natural gas, nuclear, and also purchasing from the electric grid from other parties. Around that time, we did ask American Transmission Company if we could get firm service if we were to go down the road of purchasing power from others, and they said no. We were a curtailable load, meaning they could cut us off if they had a problem on the system, and we would be the very first call. Obviously, this is not unacceptable from a reliability standpoint. I wanted to interject a real quick little story here. I know we all talk about reliability and everybody knows what that means, but I personally have been on the back end of a phone call from the grid operators that said, you need to curtail half your load. You know, on a cold winter day, that's not a real great moment when you're trying to decide who you're going to shut off first. So reliability is important. Everybody understands that, but I think some of us may feel that more than others. Because of that need for reliability, we chose to install a dispatchable generation resource in the MEC. You know, natural gas, we have 3 units. We can bounce between them at any given time and start them and stop them every 5 minutes. This a combination of attributes allowed us to get the reliability and the affordability that our community needs. We currently dispatch those recip engines into the market economically. Because we can start and stop them every 5 or 10 minutes, we can shape our generation to match the economics of the load on any given day. And doing this has saved millions of dollars in the short, I think it's been about 9 years now since we've had these running, and it kept us reliable. Ironically enough, in a few weeks, we're going to be islanded from the grid and on our own, no interconnection at all. So having these generating units behind our meter on our system is vitally important. From an environmental standpoint, the switch from coal to natural gas, I'm going to read a little bit here so I get this right. Sulfur dioxide emissions are down 99%, nitrogen oxide is down 93%, carbon monoxide is down 96%, and carbon dioxide is down 75%. And we also do not send 17,000 tons of ash per year to a landfill. And we did all of this before any state or federal rules required it. The Shires plant was in compliance with everything at the time, so we were ahead of that curve. So to circle back to the beginning a little bit, now reliability, affordability, and sustainability are key for us. Building the Rice plant has improved all of these areas. We have a modern and clean, efficient generating plant that has kept our lights on and our rates affordable. As a matter of fact, we have not raised rates in nearly 10 years, and we lowered them once in 2019, and that's all due to the transition to the MEC. We accomplished this by investing $63 million of our community's money into a state-of-the-art generating facility, following all the rules in place at the time. And just a few years later, the goalposts were moved, and we're kind of concerned that our reliability and affordability is going to go down. That is a very short version of a long story, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Pat Schillinger. I'm speaking on behalf of Upper Michigan Energy Resources Corporation, UMERC. I am Vice President of Legislative Affairs for the company. Joining me today is Scott Johnson. He's the asset manager for our Rice units for UMERC and our parent company. And by Zoom, you see Rich Stasek, who is our Director of State Regulatory Affairs for UMERC. First, we'd like to thank Representative Prestin and Bohnak for their leadership on these important pieces of legislation and for raising these issues that are critical to the people in the UP. We'd also like to acknowledge Senator McBroom for his leadership on this issue as well. UMERC serves approximately 37,500 energy customers in the Michigan's Upper Peninsula, including the Tilden Mine. I have my testimony, written testimony in front of you. Valerie Brader did a good job of going through some of the background, so I'm going to skip through that for time. But one thing that she did not mention was that part of the negotiations with her and the governor and the MPSC is they required a Michigan-only utility. So UMERC became an official Michigan-only utility on January 1st, 2017, and that is when we began building the 2 different RICE units that you've been hearing about, these modular designed units that are installed at 2 strategic locations in the UP. The FD Custer Generation Station is near Negaunee, Michigan. We have 7 RICE units there, and and the MIM station came in and has 3 RICE units there. So 7 at Custer and 3 at MIM for 10 RICE units total. As Tom mentioned, these are very reliable, efficient sources of power. They can be turned on in 3 minutes and shut down, turned on in 5 minutes and shut down in 3 minutes. During the energy law, as you recall, in 2023, there was recognition that the UP is unique, and that was the amendment that was added, the requirement for that UP energy study. And I think it's, as we've all been talking about here, a lot of unique circumstances to the UP, and we'd appreciate your consideration for those unique circumstances. Our recent amended renewable energy plan filing with the Michigan Public Service Commission highlights the critical issue that we're talking about today. We estimate that it would take over $3 billion of investments to comply with the law. That amount would need to be covered by our 37,500 customers, including the mine. Additionally, as has been mentioned, there would likely be stranded asset costs for these new units, relatively new units that came on in 2019 to be covered by our customers as well. These costs would be highly detrimental to our customers and damaging to the economic well-being of the UP. We're concerned about it, and we truly appreciate your concern and attention to this important matter. And with that, we'd be happy to take questions.
Committee members, any questions? Representative Prestin.
How much of a difference, and to all of you, Tom, you as well, how much of a difference have these RICE units and their ability to be scaled up and scaled down, especially during issues of max gen or curtailment requirements? How instrumental have they been as far as shoring up the load in the northern area of Region 2? Or in your instance, Tom, to Marquette as a whole?
So they're critical. As was mentioned, we can start and stop them in 5 minutes. We have 3 units ourselves. Most of the year, we don't require all 3 of them. So when we do get a call for a max gen from MISO or whatever it may be, we can fire them up immediately and be online in a matter of 10 minutes. It's absolutely critical. We do have requirements. I know we are a municipal. We live behind the meter in MISO's eyes, but we also do have capacity and energy requirements within MISO. So we do get the same requirements that everybody else does, just kind of a different way. Absolutely critical to us.
And just to add on to that, from a UMERC perspective, with our 10 engines, we have had all 10 of them running at full load when those requirements come through from MISO. So it has been critical to maintain the stability of the grid in the UP. So.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Brixey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So is there a way to get to a solution without the legislation? Like, is the MSP testifying, the Public Service Commission testifying? Okay. Is there a way to do this through the Public Service Commission rather than through legislation?
You know, I don't want to speak for the commission. I think it would be difficult, and I think the Public Service Commission did a great job when they came up and studied, you know, under the law, they were required to study the unique condition. So they looked at it and recognized that they were hamstrung by, by this specific requirements under the law. So, for example, they could not come in and say, yeah, sure, these RICE units should meet the definition of clean and renewable energy. We can't do that because that's not exactly how the law is written. So we don't. We're.
When did they do that? When did they say that?
they issued their report in December of last year.
Okay, could the chair disseminate copies of that?
I'm sure we can get those for you,
I mean,
Representative.
they didn't say that in the report. It was just it wasn't one of their recommendations because it doesn't meet the specific definition of the law. And that's why these bills are here now, to change that.
Representative Preston, would you like to comment on your bills?
Yeah, the MPSC's executive summaries on everybody's desk, as well as the entire report's available online. It basically, goes down the path that there is a legislative fix required for these. And then, I don't know, Rich, if I'm putting you on the spot, but if I could hear from you a little bit on I guess some of your solutions and whether or not we're able to comply with this in any way, shape, or form without some type of a fix, on the legislative side from the point of deployment of assets to comply.
So from my perspective, through the discussions that we've had once the legislation PA 235 was enacted and during the creation of the report, of which the executive summary you mentioned was on everyone's desk, our understanding talking with commission staff is that there really was no, I'll call it, workaround or solution that could be achieved to get to the same result we're trying to, because of, to Pat's point, the way that the legislation is crafted and the way clean and renewable generation are defined, we would have to build additional generation to comply with it as it's currently drafted.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. Representative, we must move on. We have about 10 more people that need to testify. So next up, we have Cleveland Cliffs, Ania, Ryan, and then we also have Daniel, Mike, Jerry, and Dan from United Steelworkers, all wishing to come up and testify together. Whenever you're ready. Just make sure you push the red button.
Good morning, Madam Chair and ladies and gentlemen of the Energy Committee. My name is Dan Rokalainen. I am the local president of local, local 4950 of the Steelworkers. I represent the pit employees of the Tilden mine, roughly 350 hourly employees. Before I get started, I want you to know today that we're not here saying that we're against protecting the environment. We're very much concerned about it as well. And I believe our company is as too, all the way up to the CEO. He has led the industry and trying to become clean. Probably he's a historical CEO, in fact, within the steel companies and the iron ore industry on trying to become clean with some of the studies he's trying to do. If the amendment isn't adopted or considered, I believe this will have detrimental effects in the place of work that we have also within our community. The cost that would be associated with the plant and the community would definitely affect our employment and people living there. Right now, we have about anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 retirees that have retired from the mine. And some of those people, their retirement, even though in the communities it's presented that we are, our retirement is very well, but some of those retirees that have retired about 20 years ago, their checks aren't as big as what we have today. And even some of them, they're surviving spouses, which means that their spouse worked at the mine, but they passed, but they still receive a benefit. We have one member, his grandmother's about 90 years old, and she receives $90 a month from Cliffs. That's her retirement. So they increase just for her alone, the projected cost is $80 a month. That's going to eat up her retirement. Also, for the cost, I mean, I don't know how much you know about other states, but we recently just shut 2 plants down in Minnesota because of cost. Also, I was on our executive board as a vice president of our union when the Empire shut down. That is not fun. It's had great effects with people I work with, family, our community as well. Also, when the public commission came up to Northern Michigan University for public hearing, a few of us here went to testify, and I actually learned some other stuff. There was somebody that came up, a young lady who had a family of about 5, and she was very concerned about the increase in electricity as well. She said this could be a difference between having heat in the winter or not for her family of 5. It is said that other than one of our highest exports is iron ore pellets, the other one is our young people. There's just specifically not a lot of jobs, and with us closing, that'd even be worse. It would affect 1,000 people hourly in salary. As was mentioned earlier, was asked how the 1,000 jobs come. There's also residual businesses that supply goods and services to Cliffs. Out in other regions, such as like Representative Prestin, when we have major repairs, we bring in contract workers, and they come from all over the UP, even sometimes all over the US. So, I mean, I've been at the mine for almost 20 years. I'm 50 years old. I don't want to start over. And if I have to, more than likely, I'm not going to stay in Michigan. I want to stay in this type of business. I want to retain the type of earnings that I've come accustomed to, and I love where I live. So I would please ask for you to consider the new bills that have been introduced to you, and I would like to thank you for your time, your patience, and your attentiveness to all of you. Thank you.
All right. Good morning. My name is Michael Grons. I'm the Vice President of Local 4950 in Negaunee, Michigan. Distinguished committee members, Madam Chair, I come here today as a concerned citizen and a hard rock iron miner in the central UP. At Local 4950, we're a little unique. We have about 600 members over a lot of diverse businesses. We're amalgamated. So we have businesses both the private and public sector. However, the majority of our members are the actual miners at the Tilden mine. We mine the iron ore that feeds industry. 2025 marks 178 years that we've consistently mined ore from the Marquette Iron Range. That's pretty significant. Iron ore mining here in Michigan has helped to grow our communities, our state, and our nation. Mining, and even more broadly, the steel industry as a whole, is a very competitive business. We face constant pressures from foreign imports, steel dumping, and foreign subsidized goods, just to name a few. Access to affordable, reliable energy is key to keeping the Marquette Iron Range competitive, hopefully for another 178 years. Cleveland Cliffs has made great strides to reduce emissions throughout their footprint, specifically in Michigan with the introduction of the RICE generators. And it was all while reducing cost for residents just like me. I'm here today in strong support of both House Bill 4007 and 4283, and it'll bring the certainty to the Iron Range that not only employers but residents such as myself need. And while the transformation to alternative energy is inevitable, we here in Michigan, with our vast supply of natural resources, along with a world-class workforce, should be more focused on supplying the minerals needed to produce these new technologies. As we have proven, we can do so more efficiently and environmentally responsible and safer than anyone in the world. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Chair Wendzel and members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen in attendance, good morning. My name is Jeremy Thompson. I am the Vice President and Grievance Chair of United Steelworkers Local 4974. I grew up in the Irontown, USA, also known as Negaunee, Michigan. I'm a third-generation Tilden mine plant repairman with over 24 years of service. My grandfather had over 20 years of service. My dad had 42 and a half years, and my youngest brother is currently with 17. We have just recently celebrated 50 years of pellet production at the Tilden mine and a continuing heritage of iron ore mining since its discovery in Negaunee, Michigan in 1844. We are here to testify on behalf of the United Steelworkers, Local 4974, in support of House Bill 4007 and House Bill 4283. The United Steelworkers represent approximately 750 employees at the Tilden mine. We are proud to represent the individuals that mine and process iron ore, which serves as a key ingredient for domestic steel making and our role in the state economy. In part, iron ore we produce at Tilden mine supplies Cleveland Cliffs Dearborn Works steel mill in Dearborn, Michigan, which in turn produces steel for the automotive sector.
Our members have dual interests in this legislation. First, it's critical that the Tilden mine, which is the last operating iron ore mine in Michigan, remain competitive. The Tilden provides our employees with good paying middle-class jobs and supports the economy and communities in which we live. Second, as Upper Peninsula residents, we understand the energy challenges and high electric power costs that face our region. We're deeply concerned that Public Act 235 of 2023 failed to recognize the unique energy landscape of the Upper Peninsula. We believe this legislation should have accounted for the $275 million investment that was made in new natural gas generation in Negaunee and Baraga to benefit the Tilden mine and all the UP ratepayers, which recently came online in 2019. We're concerned about the cost implications of meeting new clean energy standards so early in the life of these assets. Moreover, the natural gas plants are extremely efficient. They replace the old coal-fired Presque Isle power plant, already achieving tremendous greenhouse gas reductions of 86% per year. We are supportive of efforts of transition towards cleaner energy standards. However, we believe there should be more done with thoughtful approach and consideration for the impact it will have on our workers, the employers, and our electric bills. We are deeply concerned about the implications that Public Act 235 will have on Tilden mine and ask for your support in passing House Bill 4007 and House Bill 4283, which will keep electric power affordable and reliable while preserving the competitiveness of Michigan's iron ore industry. Thank you.
All right, good morning, Chair Wendzel and members. My name is Anya Adiger, and I serve as the Director of State and Local Government Relations for Cleveland Cliffs. I am joined today by Ryan Corpola, our General Manager for Cleveland Cliffs Tilden Mine. We are here to testify in support of House Bill 4007 and 4283. Passage of these bills is necessary to keep Cleveland Cliffs, Tilden Mine, and Marquette County viable. Cleveland Cliffs is the largest producer of flat-rolled steel in North America. The company is fully vertically integrated from the mining of iron ore, production of pellets, and direct reduced iron through primary steelmaking and downstream finishing, stamping, tooling, and tubing. We are the largest supplier of steel to the North American automotive industry, which is a major end market for the steel produced in our blast furnaces. Cleveland Cliffs employs approximately 2,500 individuals across our operations in Michigan. This includes nearly 1,000 at Tilden Mine and related operations in Marquette County, where the hourly workforce is represented by the United Steelworkers, and I would like to thank the leaders from Local 4974 and Local 4950 for joining us here today to testify on this important legislation. In addition to our presence in the UP, Cleveland Cliffs also owns and operates the Dearborn Works Steel Mill, where hourly workers are represented by the UAW. We operate various scrap facilities in Southeast Michigan and have a regional office in Novi. Cleveland Cliffs provides good-paying, family-sustaining jobs. The median compensation for all of Cliffs employees in 2023 was approximately $126,000. Our testimony today is focused specifically on the Tilden Mine, which produces a key ingredient for our steel facilities. Tilden is one of 5 iron mines operated by Cliffs and the last iron ore mine remaining in the state of Michigan. It is one of the largest energy consumers in the state and will face entirely unsustainable costs from Public Act 235, which would threaten the viability of Tilden and the workers the mine supports. I will turn it over to Ryan to explain these impacts in more detail.
Thank you. Excuse me. And good morning, Chair Wendzel, members of the committee. My name is Ryan Corpola, and I serve as the general manager of Cleveland Cliffs Tilden Mine in the Upper Peninsula. I have over 20 years of experience in the iron mining industry, and currently I have responsibility for the Tilden Mine, Ellis Nile Railroad, which include nearly 1,000 employees across Marquette County. Access to affordable, reliable electric power is critical to Tilden's viable production of environmentally friendly iron ore pellets. Tilden consumes 1.1 million megawatt hours of electricity per year, or the equivalent of 100,000 U.S. homes. Energy represents approximately 25% of our cost structure. Operating in the Upper Peninsula presents unique challenges with power affordability and reliability. Its geography and population limit the ability for power generators to distribute cost and results in heavy reliance on specific generating units. This became very apparent in 2013 when the UP found itself in an electric power crisis arising from plans to retire the coal-fired Presque Isle Power Plant, or PIP, in Marquette. Following the announcement, MISO mandated that PIP continue operating for reliability purposes and posed an SSR payment that cost UP ratepayers $6 million per month. Cleveland Cliffs worked in close alignment with the state of Michigan, Wisconsin Electric, the MPSC, and other UP stakeholders, arriving at innovative solution to allow for the retirement of PIP and establish clean, right-sized, and highly efficient generation in the UP. As part of that solution, Tilden entered into a 20-year special contract with UMERC that supported the construction of 2 natural gas rice generating facilities. These new plants, brought online in 2019, resolved reliability issues plaguing the UP, enabled the retirement of PIP, and terminated the SSR. Cliff's willingness to enter into this long-term contract was critical to the suspension of the SSR payments and the construction of these highly efficient rice units. This solution brought a peaceful end to what was a chaotic and uncertain period for UP ratepayers, and since the completion of the rice plants in 2019, the UP has benefited from electric reliability and relative rate stability. However, today we are facing the potential for electric rate increases on a much larger scale than we faced a decade ago. Cleveland Cliffs power provider UMERC filed an amended renewable energy plan with the Michigan Public Service Commission in February of this year. It outlined what UMERC says is the most cost-effective way for UMERC to comply with Michigan's clean energy law. That filing estimates that Tilden Mine alone would see an increase of nearly $16 million in electric power costs in 2027, with incremental rate increases that reach a peak in 2040 when renewable energy surcharges will total approximately $182 million per year. Those are just surcharges. Moreover, Act 235 will require early retirement of the rice units, adding stranded asset costs on top of the monthly bill surcharges. Tilden Mine will face catastrophic increases in electric power costs that would jeopardize the future of the Tilden Mine. Simply put, these costs are not sustainable, and if not abated, would render the Tilden Mine uneconomical, adversely impacting our nearly 1,000 employees. Anya?
As you've heard earlier today, the Upper Peninsula has been a leader in decarbonization. Likewise, Cleveland Cliffs is committed to aggressive greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. We have goals to reduce our Scope 1 and 2 emissions intensity by 30% by 2035. And in 2023, Cliffs was recognized by the U.S. Department of Energy as a greenhouse gas emissions reduction goal achiever through the DOE Better Buildings Initiative and Better Climate Challenge, when we achieved our previous reduction goals 7 years early. So we are here today not advocating for full-scale changes to the clean energy law, rather for support of this specific legislation that will address a unique energy issue in the Upper Peninsula. And please support this legislation to recognize the pragmatic investment that was made in efficient, reliable generation with support from the state of Michigan. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for coming all the way down to Lansing. We appreciate your testimony. We have one question. We're going to take one question here. We've got about 7 minutes left, and we've got 2 more people all the way from the UP down to testify, so I want to let them get a chance here. So a question from Minority Vice Chair Tate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for being here today. My question is really centered around Dearborn Works. So my district runs along the Detroit River, and we have freighters coming down from the UP on a regular basis. So it's really in 2 parts. So the first part is, my understanding is there are about 1,000 jobs at Dearborn Works, or is that?
I think that's close, yes.
And the second part of that question is, if the product that's coming out of Tilden, if that's impacted, does that impact union jobs and the UAW jobs at Dearborn Works.
Tilden feeds multiple of our blast furnaces, so certainly, any impacts on Tilden have the potential to impact our operations.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Marty Fatante from Invest UP.
Thank you, Chairwoman Wendzel, Vice Chairman Prestin, Minority Vice Chair Tate, and committee members. The Upper Peninsula is an exceptional place. I suspect that is something that those that support the changes proposed in these two bills and those that have concerns about making changes to PA 235 can agree upon. My name is Marty Fatante, and my job blesses me each day with an opportunity to appreciate how special the UP is. I'm the CEO of Invest UP, which is a regional economic development organization that looks to drive prosperity across all 15 counties of the Upper Peninsula. Incidentally, for context, the land is as large as nearly 9 states. But I would suggest that through bills 4007 and 4283, we're not seeking an exception to PA 235, but rather recognition. Recognition that the UP led on transitioning to clean energy sources, recognition that PA 235, no matter how well intended, does not recognize the energy landscape in the region, and recognition that if left to stand unaltered, PA 235 will adversely impact the UP. And it is at this last point that I'd like to focus, because any adverse impact will come at a real opportunity cost to the region, cost that we just cannot at this time afford. We're at an exciting intersection in time in the Upper Peninsula. What is taking place around technology, outdoor recreation, fresh water, climate, and remote work has the Upper Peninsula for the first time in decades growing population. And for us organizationally, that's our North Star. It's our defining metric. To understand why, you need only understand what has taken place in the region since 1970. In that time, the UP has lost 48% of its K-12 population. More stunning, since 2000, the UP has lost 26% of its K-12 population. To offer further context to those numbers, had we the same number of students today that we did in 1970, Upper Peninsula schools would be blessed with nearly $350 million more in school aid investment each and every year. Ironically, though, our population across the region has remained fairly static. That's because the UP has understandably been embraced as a destination to retire. But that reality and the loss of our K-12 population, we have seen our region age dramatically. In 1990, the two biggest age cohorts were exactly where a community would want them, between the ages of 30 and 39. 30 years later, the three biggest age cohorts in the UP are now between the ages of 55 and 69. Because of those realities, it's no surprise that, according to 2023 data, our labor participation rate in the UP is nearly now 10 points below the US average and 7.5 points below the Michigan average. This is not a sustainable age pyramid whatsoever. And that is why we're so grateful to Governor Whitmer for her focus on population, and that she assembled a population council, and that she appointed Hillary Dell as the chief growth officer for the state. However, I testify before you today with news of hope in the UP. But before doing so, I think it's important to mention that while I'm grateful for the opportunity to testify virtually, my intent until my wife took ill yesterday and was hospitalized was to be with you in person. So please do not infer in any way that these few minutes to share with you why this is so important to the UP did not merit 13 hours in the car. Although parts of the UP are closer to 5 other state capitals, I would be glad to drive to Lansing anytime to advocate for recognition of this crucial consideration. If I were to have driven, I'm grateful to say that there's been a bit more traffic on the road. You see, the past 3 census estimates show that there is growth for the first time in years in 10 of 15 UP counties. And recent school data shows that 21% of our school districts have seen modest enrollment increases since 2015. That momentum and traction comes at an exciting and critical time from a development standpoint. Organizationally, we do our best to stay in touch with development opportunities. And currently, we have an inventory of projects that reveal over 50 significant projects in the region that are either working towards completion, in development, or in planning. These projects span the peninsula and reflect over $5.5 billion in new investment that would create 2,700 new jobs and retain over 2,900 existing jobs. Let me just offer you one as an example of the type of development that we are we have opportunity for in the UP. Able Medical Devices. At its heart, Able reflects the sophisticated advanced manufacturing taking place all across the region. As it's one of 4 medical device manufacturers in the Upper Peninsula, it makes its home in Marquette County alongside 2 other medical device manufacturers. Able is right now in the middle of relocating its operations to the city of Marquette, where it will now be serviced by Marquette Board of Power and Light. Of course, when it planned to build this new $13 million, 30,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility that will bring an estimated 40 additional new jobs locally, it had no idea of the significant adverse financial implications awaiting them through this move through PA 235. And the new Able site is actually 100,000 total square feet, and as its vision is to create an advanced technology park. Able's parent company, which has deep local roots, is presently in later stage negotiations to finalize a deal with a high-tech company to locate in that park alongside them.
Marty, if you could wrap it up in the next minute here, we're already past our time, and we've got 2 more people to testify. Thank you.
Completely understand. Thank you.
I appreciate your testimony, and there were some very unique, eye-opening statistics in there, so I appreciate you bringing that perspective. So next up, I believe virtually as well, we have from Lake Superior Community Partnership, Mary Myers.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Mary Myers. I'm the Director of Economic Development Services at the Lake Superior Community Partnership, which is Marquette County's economic development organization. Our mission is to drive economic growth, job creation, and business stability across Marquette County and the Upper Peninsula. I'm here today to express our strong support for House Bills 4007 and 4283, which we believe are essential to protecting the affordability and reliability of electricity for businesses and residents, not only in Marquette County, but throughout the UP. The UP has been a leader in carbon emissions reduction. Between 2013 and 2022, emissions from the UP's power sector dropped by an impressive 71%. The recent investments in the highly efficient natural gas-based RICE units have completely eliminated coal-fired power generation in the region. These advancements have already moved the UP significantly toward a cleaner energy future without compromising reliability or economic viability. However, Act 235 introduces challenging renewable energy and clean power requirements that would accelerate the retirement of the RICE units and necessitate large-scale investment in new renewable generation and storage infrastructure. A recent analysis by UMERC, which you previously heard, estimates that the compliance with the Act 235 would exceed $3 billion by 2040. With significant rate impacts. So residential customers, the monthly surcharge would start at $7.28 in 2027, rising up to $86.91 by 2040, amounting to an additional $87 to $1,043 per year per household. Industrial customers, the monthly surcharge would increase from 1.3 million in 2027 to 15 million by 2040, equating to 15.7 million to 182 million annually. These projected costs pose a serious threat to the economic health of our region, making it difficult for energy-intensive industries like mining and manufacturing to remain viable, key sectors that contribute to the UP by offering stable family-sustaining wages. Even today, the Upper Peninsula faces challenges in attracting new businesses due in part to already elevated energy costs. So without the passage of these amendments from the bills, those challenges would only grow more severe. Increased costs and uncertainty around energy reliability would further diminish our competitiveness and hinder future investment in the region. House Bill 4007 and 4283 are critical to ensuring a balanced, practical transition to clean energy by preserving energy reliability through the continued operation of the RICE units for the duration of their useful life, preventing economic disruption by avoiding unsustainable electricity cost increases for residents, small businesses, and major employers, supporting affordability by maximizing the use of existing clean energy infrastructure rather than requiring premature high-cost replacements, and protecting business retention and job security, especially in sectors that are foundational for the UP's economy. The Upper Peninsula, as I mentioned, has already made meaningful progress toward clean energy goals. The accelerated retirement of vital infrastructure like the RICE units under Act 235 could present significant economic challenges and potentially jeopardize grid reliability. We respectfully urge the committee to support House Bills 4007 and 4283 to safeguard energy affordability, economic stability, and the future prosperity of the Upper Peninsula. Thank you for your time today and consideration.
Thank you, Mary. And last but not least, we have Senator Ed McBroom to testify, to wrap everything up, all the way from the UP. Appreciate you sitting through committee here with us today, and looking forward to your testimony, your quick testimony. Committee members, if you need to leave to go to another committee, feel free. This will be our last testimony, and then we'll wrap things up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate your indulgence, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to drive to Lansing for a committee that wasn't in conflict with the Senate. So that was nice that you scheduled this while the Senate wasn't in town. That makes it a lot easier for me. You've heard so much today from people who I've had the great privilege of working with over the last 15 years as the Upper Peninsula has tried to find its way through a very difficult problem when it comes to energy. When I first entered office in 2011, there was a major gathering of all the utilities in the UP and various community leaders in Marquette to discuss what are we going to do if Presque Isle closes. And the mine was there. John Kevla, who had been mayor of Marquette, was there. Steve Lindbergh was still the rep. I'm an old man now. And these problems we discussed at the time. What's going to happen? There's going to be SSR payments. The mine might close. All of this could happen if the PIP plant closes. And a few years later, that's exactly what happened. And we were suddenly saddled with numerous fees and costs and a great deal of uncertainty for the future of the Upper Peninsula. Rates increased on top of that, which they always do, even with the service increases. And so we did studies. We did numerous studies. And those studies have continued to point out the uniqueness of the Upper Peninsula's isolation. We're very fortunate, to have John Kevla join us in the legislature a couple of years later. And with his leadership, Tom Casperson, Scott Deanda, and others, especially Valerie Brader, a solution was brought forward that kept our jobs, that kept energy flowing, and made it more reliable and more sustainable for the future. But the Upper Peninsula continues to face a great deal of challenges. We have some of the highest costs of living of anywhere in the country and some of the highest costs of energy of anywhere in the country. Some of my residents in the Upper Peninsula are paying over 30 cents a kilowatt hour. I passed out to you some bills from both my farm and from a local ratepayer that are in the Wisconsin Electric service area, where we're paying around 20 to 23 cents a kilowatt hour, depending on the present vagaries of rate setting. It goes up and down. You can see on one of my bills there for my farm that the rate changed in the middle of the month. It's some of my farm's bills for a small dairy farm milking 120 cows, over $4,000 a month. I didn't have a copy of that particular one. I gave you a couple of copies where it's in the 3,000 area. These costs of energy for us, coupled with higher costs for fuel, higher costs for food, for clothing, all of these things, because we're so remote and isolated, make it a difficult place to live, to raise a family, to own a business, to operate an industry. And this bill that was passed a couple of years ago, I and others at the time warned the Upper Peninsula needs to receive some specific consideration, as was being given to a few other areas in the state at that time that had RICE units. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the support at the time we needed for that. However, we did get support to do another study. Taxpayers have paid for a lot of studies for the Upper Peninsula over the years. It's remarkable how consistent those studies end up being, and that they tell us the same things again and again. We have a unique energy situation there, a very unique landscape that needs to be handled in a precise way. And these bills that you have in front of you from Representatives Prestin and Bohnak offer you that opportunity to give us that. And when you speak, one of the members mentioned earlier about the commission report that was offered in December, which is the report the law required. It basically boils down to 3 points when you read the executive summary. We have 3 options. Either change the law, build a boatload of transmission, which we'll still have to pay for, or just use less electricity. Those are really the 3 options that the Public Service Commission identifies. You've heard the costs and the forecasts. You heard Mr. Fatante starting to give you some of the details on businesses and the opportunities that many of us are very excited to see coming to the Upper Peninsula. And yet this forecasted rate increase, just of the surcharges alone, it doesn't include all the other rate increases that are naturally going to occur as maintenance costs go up, as other costs always continue to accumulate. Those costs are going to make it impossible for these companies to decide to locate in the Upper Peninsula, and are going to be a devastating blow and set us back decades from the decline the UP has finally started to turn a corner from. The decline that some of you who've toured up there through the 80s and 90s were very familiar with seeing has finally started to seemingly reverse as we've coupled both manufacturing, industry, Michigan Tech's prowess in education and engineering, along with the tourism opportunities where tourists used to not spend very much money. These days they spend a lot of money. And all of those things are coupling together to give the UP hope for a future, giving people hope that they can raise families there again, that their families can stay there, that their children can find career paths to stay there. And yet this energy precipice that we are coming towards is going to be a dead end for us. And so I encourage you to support the legislation. I'm happy to take any questions you might have or give you more details.
In the interest of time, we've already gone over 11 minutes. I know committee members have other places
I didn't go over
to be.
11 minutes, did I?
No, that wasn't you. Not at all. Nope. But thank you for being here and taking the time and giving us that perspective. As we can tell, there are many more people that wanted to speak. You definitely can submit your testimony and it will go on the record. We also have many cards, and I will save everybody from reading those in. They will also go on the record, but we can see here how important this legislation is and how many people are invested in it, and how unique the UP is, how beautiful the UP is, and how we'd like to keep the UP as it is and thriving. And we can't do that, it seems like, without these and without a change to our energy laws. So we will be taking these up for a vote, hopefully, here in a few weeks, but we have a few weeks off. So if anybody would like to contact committee members, or committee members, if you have any more questions for many of the people who testified today, please feel free to reach out to them. And I have a motion from Representative Prestin to excuse absent members. Hearing no objections, absent members are excused. And seeing no further business before the committee, the House committee stands adjourned.